All right, everyone. Welcome. I'm glad we have a fantastic packed house today. We're here to celebrate NeuroLaunch and the companies going through the program. We are the first and only neuroscience startup accelerator. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us on this day. This is our second demo day. The first one was in February, and I see some familiar faces from the first time. My name is Dr. Jordan Amadio. I'm a senior resident in neurosurgery at Emory University here in Atlanta. I'm also one of the co-founders and partners of NeuroLaunch, along with Chris Klaus and Jim Schwabel, who are in the room. And I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing and where we're heading. The brain, as many of you know, is the most complex structure known to man. And it also is incredible because it gives rise to all of our experience. And as I was just telling a colleague out front, all of our hopes, dreams, fears, sorrows are ultimately traceable to the brain. So we want to be able to understand the brain, to fix it when it goes wrong, and possibly even to augment it during its normal function. That's what NeuroLaunch is about. So yes, the brain is complex, but because of that, it represents what I believe to be an extraordinary opportunity. We live in an era where there is actually increasing interest in neuroscience, and that's translated into increasing investment, both from the public and private sectors in neuroscience research. Many of you are familiar with the BRAIN initiative out of the White House, as well as the Human Brain Project, that's a parallel initiative in the EU, which have together devoted over $1.5 billion earmarked towards neuroscience research. There's also a number of private initiatives around the world that have also been supporting basic research in neuroscience. What we're excited about is being able to translate all this incredible knowledge into innovations, devices, products, and solutions that are going to change society. And in fact, I believe are going to influence our everyday lives. We live in an era of convergence where neuroscience as it stands as a scientific and medical specialty. I work with many neurosurgical patients, many colleagues in neurology and psychiatry. That whole field is now intersecting with tech. In fact, it's also intersecting with consumer technology and the startup world. And we just see some examples on the screen here of some companies that have been in the news over the past few months, both medical device companies, software companies, and companies that are doing things that are geared towards the everyday person, but using neuroscience principles. And in fact, some of our favorite personalities are even getting in on the action. I, for one, share this vision and the excitement around it, and this is what NeuroLaunch is tapping into at this particular moment in history. So I think all of you are making history today. We surveyed a couple hundred innovators in neuroscience, people who are trying to do what many of those in this room are doing, which is translating innovations to the marketplace and using neuroscience principles to impact society. And we asked them, we know you have opportunities, but what are your challenges? What's really holding you back from massive success? And we got some very interesting answers. The obvious things were there: funding. So capital, 45%. That was a minority of the pie. Less than 50% was funding. Other things were, in aggregate, more important. Experience and mentorship, help with product adoption, and then access to resources they need to succeed. And so NeuroLaunch was founded around this need that we identified in neuroscience. This is the NeuroLaunch model. We provide companies with resources that fall into 4 pillars. One of those is mentorship, and that's the one I'm actually most proud of. Do we have NeuroLaunch mentors in the room? Raise your hand if you're a NeuroLaunch mentor. A lot of mentors coming out today. These people are the lifeblood of NeuroLaunch. These people are world-class in what they do, and they volunteered their time to help early-stage startups in neuroscience succeed, whether it's product design, whether it's regulatory, legal help, clinical or scientific expertise. All of these things come into the mentorship structure. We have partnerships with a number of organizations that help us with legal services, prototyping, 3D printing, accounting services. All of these we bring to our companies. We have a 90-day curriculum that covers the core elements of what you need to succeed as a startup, That curriculum is mostly taught by mentors through workshops and hands-on didactic sessions. And lastly, but not least certainly, we provide funding to all of our companies, ranging between $20,000 and $100,000, depending on the stage of the startup entering the program. The Accelerator model has never before been applied to neuroscience. This is the first time. And because of that, we have a great precedent. We have shoulders of giants to stand on. But we've also had to educate a lot of people in the neuroscience community about what this means. So pioneered by organizations like Y Combinator and Techstars, the Startup Accelerator model is actually a proven model for growth in early stage companies. And as many of you know, there's been a proliferation of accelerators around the world. We are taking the best of what they have to offer and distilling it for the neuroscience community. There are some other health accelerators out there and incubators. We are the only ones focused on neuroscience. And that is what's given us an advantage in being able to communicate with the community, help our startups in a very driven and topic-focused way, and access all of the resources and the attention that we've been fortunate to get over the past year. And as I did mention, accelerators are a growing market right now, over $7 billion being put in worldwide. We have a wonderful team, and NeuroLaunch could not happen without the expertise and intelligence and motivation of our core team, which I'm very proud of. In addition to myself, Jim Schwabel, who's a biomedical engineer, Chris Klaus, who's a legendary entrepreneur and angel investor here in Atlanta, founded NeuroLaunch about a year ago, and we've been growing at a rapid clip since then. We've brought on Kyle Grossman, who is a startup expert and also M.B.A. As our senior associate full-time, and we have three very impressive summer fellows, Abby, Alex, and Garrett, who are all here with us today. There are currently 11 NeuroLaunch companies in our portfolio, and we actually divide them into 4 buckets, which represent our interests going forward in neuroscience. And as you can see, we define neuroscience very broadly. Pharmacotherapeutics is one bucket. Sensors and wearables, neuro and medical devices, and software companies, which capture big data and machine intelligence as it applies to neuroscience. So using these 4 categories, we can understand that neuroscience is far more than medical devices, far more than drugs or biotech, far more than even just software. It's all of those things. And we're actually defining a new cross-category vertical called neuroscience startups. And we invite you to join us in that vision. Because of the novelty of what we're doing, we've been fortunate to attract a lot of wonderful attention from around the world. We've been featured in the media, television, on the internet, and I'm very proud of the positive response we've gotten from the community. We are vertically focused, and we are headquartered here in Atlanta, Georgia, but we are global in our scope and our reach. This map shows the origins of the poster companies and portfolio companies from our last batch alone, and you can add to that many more from the current batch and the people here in attendance today. So we're in constant communication with people around the world, all tracing back here to Atlanta. But as you'll soon see, we've begun our expansion geographically and conceptually. We had 9 countries represented in the first 2 batches of NeuroLaunch amongst our entrepreneurs, and that's just an extraordinary fact given that there are only 11 portfolio companies. So we have a global group and a global mission. Let me tell you a little bit about the impact we've had and what we've been up to. I want to highlight just a couple things on here. 122 companies have applied for our 11 spots in only 1 year of existing. We have over 120 mentors around the world who are committed to helping us and applying their world-class expertise to what we do. We've had 127 speakers, talks, guest workshops, both here in Atlanta and in the other 2 NeuroLaunch locations, which are Boston and the San Francisco Bay Area. And that expansion is recent. It's occurred this summer, and we've gotten a tremendous response. I'll tell you more about that a little bit later. Our first batch of portfolio companies have succeeded in raising $4 million in various forms of follow-on funding, and we're continuing to support them and helping them grow. This was batch number 1. You're going to meet a couple of these companies today. These 6 are all thriving and doing well. We have Cognition Medical here today. We have Mint Labs speaking to us virtually. from Spain, and we have Intellimetics, and so you'll hear more about them later. In batch one, we actually surveyed the companies, and the good news is 100% of our alumni loved what we had to offer. They said they would pursue NeuroLaunch again. To me, that's very meaningful. Some of the words they use to describe the value of NeuroLaunch, you see the big ones: mentors and funding, publicity, confidence, connections, introductions to investors, clinical perspective. These are all words that have been used to describe the value NeuroLaunch provides. In fact, at the end of the program, 4 things stood out as being the most important aspects of the NeuroLaunch experience: mentors, demo day, partners, and seed funding. And those reflect the core value of what we provide to companies in our program. Mentors is, I believe, the most important of those 4. Here in the room, we have many NeuroLaunch mentors, many more hopefully watching our live stream from around the world. There's over 120 of them now. These are thought leaders in their core areas, whether they're neurosurgeons, neurologists, psychiatrists, former entrepreneurs who've exited companies, investors such as VCs and angels, industry experts from pharmaceutical companies, medical device companies. It really spans the gamut. But all of these people have in common an expertise at the intersection of neuroscience and startups, and a willingness to mentor and support this vision. You're going to meet all of the batch number 2 companies today. I'm very proud of what they've accomplished, how far they've come. These are the cream of the crop of the companies that came through our application process, and we're very excited to introduce you to them today. This summer, the big news for NeuroLaunch has been our expansion, and we've actually set up operations in 3 cities: Atlanta, Boston, and San Francisco. And we've had a great time going to all those places and shopping around our companies and meeting with investors and mentors there. We also have about 22 poster companies that are joining us from around the world. And during the cocktail hour, they'll be here showing their posters, showing their stuff. And these are people who've been selected for their prowess as neuroscience startups and their promise. So I hope you will enjoy meeting them as well. We're very proud to have what I believe to be the biggest gathering of neuroscience startups in one place in history. We'll now have a panel straight to the NeuroLaunch company pitches. After a few awards and closing remarks, we'll actually have a cocktail reception in the community room over there, and you're free to stay and mingle and enjoy the company of your fellow neuroscience buffs.